Good day, everyone. Since we are already through in discussing Bruner's constructivist theory, now we will proceed to another topic, which is all about constructivism, or also known as concepts of learning or construction of knowledge. But before that, please join me to unravel these scrambled words. So we have here the first scrambled words, which is, do you have any guesses? Okay, that is correct. So this scrabbled words is constructivism. So the next one we have, okay, that is also correct, concepts. And the third one, that is learner. And the fourth one is, do you have any guesses? So again, that is correct, socialization. This is the last one, the last scrabble words. So that is exploration. So these words are connected to the topic that I will be discussing later on. So now, without further ado, let us dive in to our topic, which is about constructivism. But before that, allow me to introduce myself. I am Elaine J. Lazaro, and I will be discussing deconstructivism. Okay, I have here presented to you our learning objectives, wherein at the end of the lesson, you are able to define and understand constructivism, determine and differentiate the two views of constructivism, determine the characteristics of constructivism and concepts in organizing knowledge, and the last one is to know the application of constructivism in facilitated learning. I have here presented to you our advanced organizer, wherein we are going to discuss views of constructivism, which is consist of individual constructivism and social constructivism. We are also going to elaborate the characteristics of constructivism and organizing knowledge. So I have here constructivism. Constructivism is a learning theory that emphasizes the active role of learners in building their own understanding. So rather than passively receiving information, learners construct knowledge through experiences, reflection, and social interaction. So in here, so constructivism, this is a learning theory wherein it highlights the process by which learners are actively engaged in constructing their own understanding of the world. So this approach suggests that learning is not merely a transfer of information from teacher to student, but rather a dynamic personal process where the learner connects new information to their prior knowledge and experiences. Here, students take an active role in learning by exploring, asking questions, and solving problems. They also use their prior knowledge as foundation to build new understanding. And also, here, knowledge as constructed, not transmitted. Meaning, here in constructivism, we view knowledge as something constructed within the learner's mind, shaped by unique experiences and understanding, wherein the learners interpret new information based on their existing cognitive frameworks, adjusting or organizing these frameworks as necessary. Constructivism emphasizes that knowledge is not static but evolves as learners engage with the world. So it empowers students to become independent thinkers and problem solvers, preparing them for lifelong learning and adaptability in a complex, changing world. Now we will proceed to the first view of constructivism, which is individual constructivism. It is also called as cognitive constructivism. So it emphasizes individual internal construction of knowledge. It is largely based on Piaget's theory, proponents of this type chose child-centered and discovery learning. So they believe, or individual constructivists believe, learners should be able to discover principles through their own exploration rather than direct instruction by the teachers. So, individual constructivism is a learning theory wherein it emphasizes the individual's role in building knowledge. It is also known as cognitive constructivism because it focuses on the internal cognitive process involving in learning. So, when we say individual internal construction of knowledge, this means that learners do not passively receive information but actively construct their own understanding. So, based on their experiences and interaction with the world. So, we are also basing this on Piaget's theory, wherein the individual constructivism draw this from the work of Piaget because Piaget believed that children progress through distinct stages of cognitive development and each characterized by different ways of thinking and understanding the world. So next we have when we say child-centered and discovery learning, meaning the proponents of individual constructivism advocates for educational approaches that centers on the learner's needs and interests. And also they emphasizes the discovery learning where students are encouraged to explore concepts and ideas through hands-on activities, experimentation, and problem solving, wherein it allows students to construct their own understanding rather than simply memorizing facts provided by the teacher. And also, when we say emphasis on exploration over direct instruction, or individual constructivists suggest that teachers should act as facilitator rather than lecturers. They should guide students' exploration, provide resources, and encourage critical thinking. But the teacher should avoid directly telling students what to think or how to solve problems. So next, we have here our second view of constructivism, which is social constructivism. So this view emphasizes that knowledge exists in a social context and is initially shared with others instead of being presented solely in the mind of an individual. It is based on Vygotsky's theory. Here, construction of knowledge is shared by two or more people. So, in social constructivism, we are emphasizing the role of social interaction and collaboration in knowledge construction, wherein this view suggests that knowledge isn't just an individual mental construct, but rather something that emerges from social context and is shared among people. So, knowledge exists in a social context, meaning that the way we understand the world is shaped by our interactions with others, the culture we live in, and the social norms we encounter. So, knowledge isn't simply out there waiting to be discovered, but is actively created and shared within communities. So, knowledge is initially shared with others before being internalized by individuals. So, through conversations, discussions, and collaborations, individuals learn from each other and refine their understanding of concepts. So, again, social constructivism is based on or draws heavily on the work or from the work of Lev Vygotsky, who focuses on the social origins of cognitive development. So Vygotsky emphasizes the importance of social interaction and the zone of proximal development, wherein this ZPD is the gap between what a learner can do independently and what they can achieve with the help of a more knowledgeable other. So, for example, imagine a child learning about the concept of gravity. So, they might initially observe objects falling to the ground and ask questions about why. So, through conversation with parents, teachers, or peers, they might learn about the force of gravity and how it affects objects. So, this process of sharing and discussing ideas with others helps the child develop a deeper understanding of the gravity. So, next, according to social constructivists, the opportunity to interact and share among learners to help shape and refine their ideas. Knowledge construction becomes social, not individual. So, the statements highlights a core principle of social constructivism wherein knowledge is built through a social interaction and collaboration, right? So social constructivists believe that learning is most effective when learners have opportunities to interact with each other, share ideas, and engage in discussion, wherein this process helps the learners to refine their thinking. So by hearing different perspective and engaging in dialogue, learners can challenge their own assumptions, identify gaps in their understanding, and also develop more nuanced and sophisticated ideas. So also, the learner could develop a deeper understanding. So through social interaction allows learner to build on each other's knowledge and insights, leading to a deeper understanding of the topic. Social constructivism emphasizes that knowledge is not simply an internal, individual construction. Instead, it emerges from the social context through shared experiences, conversations, and collaborative problem solving, I mean. So, so in our social constructivism, it suggests that learning is social process. So it's not just about what happens inside an individual's mind, but also about the interactions and exchanges that takes place within a community of learners. So let us proceed to characteristics of constructivism. So according to Egan and Kochak, there are four characteristics that individual or social view have in common. And these are: first, learners construct understanding. So, learners are active thinkers who interpret new information based on what they already know. So, they construct knowledge in a way that makes sense to them. This statement describes constructivism, a learning theory that emphasizes the active role of learners play in building their understanding. So, learners are active thinkers, wherein learners don't passively absorb information. They engage with new concepts, analyze questions, and connect them to their existing knowledge, wherein also they interpret new information based on their prior knowledge, and they don't learn in a vacuum. So our brains uses existing knowledge, our experiences, beliefs, and understanding to make sense of the new information. So we construct knowledge in a way that makes sense to them. So this means that learners don't just memorize facts. Instead, they create their own unique mental models and frameworks for understanding, wherein this process is individual and can vary between learners. So, for example, imagine a student learning about the solar system. They might already know about the Earth and the Sun. So, when introduced to planets like Mars, they can build upon this prior knowledge. So, they might think Mars is like Earth, but it's red and colder. It is further away from the Sun and Earth. So, this connection help them construct a meaningful understanding of Mars, going beyond just memorizing facts. Next, we have new learning depends on current understanding. So, background information is very important. It is through the present views or schemes that the learner has that new information will be interpreted. So, this statement highlights the importance of prior knowledge in learning. It emphasizes that new learning isn't just about absorbing new information, it is about how that information interacts with what we already know. So we already know shapes how we understand new information. So our existing knowledge acts as a filter, influencing how we interpret new ideas. So also background is very important, wherein this background serves as our foundation for understanding new concepts, and our present views or schemes emphasizes that the mental structures or framework we use to organize our knowledge, these schemes helps us make new sense of information by connecting it to what we already understand. So for example, we imagine a student learning about photosynthesis. So if they already understand the basic biology concepts like plants needing sunlight, water, and air, they can easily grasp the process of photosynthesis. However, if they lack this fundamental knowledge, the concept might be much harder to comprehend. Next is learning is facilitated by social interaction. Constructivists believe in creating community of learners with a classrooms. Learning communities help learners take responsibility for their own learning. So teacher plays the role of facilitators. So learning community, this refers to a classroom environment where students collaborate, share ideas, and learn from each other, wherein it fosters a sense of shared responsibility for learning. And also, learners take responsibility for their own learning. So, in a constructivist classroom, students aren't just passive recipients of information. They actively participate in the learning process, like, for example, asking questions, challenging ideas, and contributing to discussion. And also, the teacher's role shifts from being a dispenser of knowledge to a guide and facilitator. They create opportunities for students to explore, experiment, and also construct their own understanding. So, for example, imagine a group project where students work together to design a solution to a real world problem. So these social interactions allows them to learn from each other's perspective and expertise, and also develop critical thinking and problem solving skills. And also the students are able to take ownership of their learning by contributing to the project's success. So part 1, meaningful learning occurs with authentic learning task. An authentic learning task is one that involves a learning activity that involves constructing knowledge and understand that is so akin to the knowledge and understanding needed when applied in the real world. So authentic tasks, these are activities that mimic real world situations and require learners to apply their knowledge in a meaningful way. So, constructing knowledge and understanding. So, these authentic tasks encourage learners to go beyond memorization and engage in a deeper learning. So, the knowledge and the skills gained through authentic tasks are directly transferable to real world contexts, making learning more relevant and engaging. So, for example, instead of simply memorizing the parts of a plant, students might also design a garden plan based on their understanding of plant needs. Also, research and present a proposal for a sustainable farming initiative. So, this task connects learning to real-world applications, making it more meaningful and memorable for students. So we have our next one, which is organizing knowledge. So First, concepts. A concept is a way of grouping or categorizing objects or events in our mind. A concept of teach includes a group of tasks such as model, discuss, illustrate, explain, assist, etc. So, here, concepts help us organize the world around us. So we group similar objects, events, or ideas together based on their shared characteristics. So this simplifies our understanding and allow us to make sense of complex information. So concepts are mental representations of these groupings. So they're not physically things. They exist in mind as abstract ideas. So example teach. The concept of teach as a group of related tasks, think of it like a mental container. So inside that container, we store various actions associated with teaching, such as modeling, discussing, illustrating, explaining, assisting, etc. So, concepts are powerful mental tools that help us organize, understand, and communicate information. So, they are building blocks of our knowledge and also play a crucial role in learning and thinking. So, new concepts are primarily developed through exposure to the world and interaction with it. So, as we experience different objects, events, and relationships, our brain create these categories and mental representations to categorize this information. And also, social interaction plays a crucial role in concept development. We learn about concepts through conversation, shared experiences, and cultural practice. So, this social learning helps us refine and expand our understanding of concepts. So, for example, think of the concept of a dog. So, while infants might have an innate ability to recognize a dog as a distinct entity, it's through repeated experiences with dogs, seeing them, hearing them, interacting with them, so that they develop a more comprehensive understanding of the concept. So they learn about different dog breeds, their behaviors, and their roles in society. So we have here concepts as feature lists. So learning a concept involves learning features and characterize positive instances of that concept. So this means that when we learn a concept, we are essentially learning the key characteristics or attributes that define it. So these features act like a mental checklist that helps us identify instances of that concept. And also, when we say positive instances, so they are examples that fit the concept. So, for example, a triangle with three sides is a positive instance of the triangle, of the concept of a triangle. So, we have here feature list. So, defining features is a characteristic presence in all instances. So, for example, a triangle has three sides. Having three sides is a defining feature of a triangle should have a three side. If one doesn't have, then it is not a triangle. So these are characteristics that essential for belonging to a concept. If a feature is missing, the object or event doesn't fit the concept. So our example, the three side for the triangle is perfect. So without three side, it is not a triangle. So the triangle is our the three side is our defining features. So correlational feature is one that is present in many positive instances but is not essential for concept membership. So for example, a mother is loving. So being loving is a feature commonly present in the concept, but mother may not be loving. So being loving is only a correlational, not a defining one. So correlational features, these are characteristics that are commonly associated with a concept, but it is not essential, like I said. So they might be present in many instances, but their absence doesn't disqualify something from belonging to the concept. So we have here our example of a loving mother. So many mothers may be loving, but it is not a defining feature of being a mother. we have our concept house. So the defining features are walls. Of course, a house needs walls for structure and protection. Also, it has roof wherein a house needs a roof for shelter from weather. And door, a house needs a door for entry and exit. So windows also provides light and ventilation. So those are our defining features. So the correlational features is that, for example, our garden. So while many houses have gardens, it is not essential. Also, garage. Many houses have garage, but it is not a defining feature. So another is number of bedrooms. The number of bedrooms in a house varies. So also that is not a defining features. The second one is concept as prototype. So a prototype is an idea or a visual image of a typical example. So it is usually formed based on the positive instances that learners encounter most often. So once learners have their own concept prototypes, the new example that they see are checked against this existing prototype. Concept as prototype. It offers an alternative to the strict feature list model for understanding of how we represent concepts in our minds. So instead of a list of features, prototype suggests that we form a mental representation of a typical example of a concept, meaning this prototype is not a perfect representation but rather a composite of the most common and salient features we have encountered. So, for example, bird. Our prototype for bird might be a small, brown, singing bird that flies. This is based on the common birds we've seen and experiences. So now we are comparing new instances to this prototype. So we are or when we encounter a new instances, we compare it to our existing prototype, right? If it matches closely enough, we categorize it as belonging to that concept. So, a new instances might not perfectly match our prototype, but it could still be close enough to be considered a member of the concept. So for example, fruit. Our prototype for fruit might be a round, red, sweet, and juicy. So that is apple. So our new instances, we are encountering new instances. So for example, we have this strawberry. So strawberry is a small, red, and sweet, but not round and juicy. It is still considered a fruit because it shares enough feature with our prototype. So for example is avocado. Avocado is a green, large, and creamy. It doesn't match our prototype very well, but it is still considered a fruit because it grows on a tree and contains seeds. So that is concept as prototype. Concepts as exemplars. Exemplars represent a variety of examples. It allows learners to know what an example under a concept may have variability. So example, a learner's concept of vegetable may include a variety of different examples like cauliflower, kangkong, cabbage, string beans, squash, corn, potatoes. When he encounters a new type of vegetable like bitsuelas, he would search from the exemplars he knows and looks for one that is most similar, so like string beans. So when we say bitsuelas, it is more like of a bagyo beans. So string beans could be are the most closest sa atin nga example. Concepts as exemplar, it is a powerful alternative to both feature lists and prototypes, and it also helps us understand how we handle the vast variability and complexity of the real world. So exemplars Exemplars as a collection of examples. So, exemplar theory suggests that instead of relying on a single prototype, we store a collection of specific examples or exemplars we have encountered for each concepts. Next is our variability, wherein this approach acknowledges the natural variability within the concept. For example, the concept of our bird includes many different types of birds, each with unique features, right? So we have our eagle, our Maya, so that is one example of exemplars. So matching new instances to exemplars, wherein when we encounter a new instances, we don't compare it to a single prototype. So instead, we compare it to all the exemplars we have stored for that concepts. So we then categorize the new instance based on the exemplars it most closely resembles. So on our example of vegetables, so our vegetable perfectly illustrate those types of exemplars. So a learner's concepts of vegetables might include a wide range of exemplars like cauliflower, like I've said earlier, those kangkong, cabbage, string beans, squash, corns, and potatoes. So when the learner encounters a new vegetables like bitsuelas, of course, they would search through their collections of exemplars and find the most closest match, which might be the string beans, based on these visual similarities or shared characteristics of string beans and bitsuelas. Because, like I've said earlier, bitsuelas is in our language, or what we say it, string bean bitsuelas is Baguio beans, and Baguio beans is closely, or bitsuelas is closely match or fits our exemplars of string beans, which is sitaw. So that is all for our organizing of knowledge. So we have three, which is concepts as feature list. We have defining feature and correlational feature. We also have concepts as prototype, and lastly, we have concepts as exemplars. Now we will proceed to our next discussion. In making concept learning effective, as a future teacher, we can help our students learn concepts by doing the following, wherein these approaches are grounded in the theories we have discussed and are practical for teachers to implement in the classroom. So first, we have here to provide a clear definition of a concept. So a clear and concise definition lays the groundwork for understanding the concept, meaning it helps students grasp the essential meaning and identify the key characteristic. So for example, a triangle is a closed shape with three straight sides. Second is to make the defining features very concrete. So we have to use visuals, real world objects, or demonstration to make the defining features more tangible and memorable. We have to show students different types of triangles. So for example, equilateral, isosceles, scalene, and point out the three sides in each. So our third is to give a variety of positive and negative instances. So like I've said earlier, when we say positive instances, it is present examples that clearly fit the concept, and the negative instances includes examples that do not fit the concept, to help students understand the boundary and avoids misconceptions. So for example, show students pictures of triangles and other shapes like squares, circles, to help them distinguish between them. So our fourth one is to ask the learner to think of their own example of the concept. So we have to encourage our students encourage active learning by having students generate their own examples, meaning this helps them internalize the concepts and apply it to a new situation. So, for example, ask students to draw their own triangle or find an example of a triangle in their environment. So, it could be a pizza slice. So, fifth is to point out how concepts can be related to each other. So, we have to show how concepts are interconnected to help students build a richer understanding and see the bigger picture. So, for example, we have to explain how triangles are related to the geometric shapes, such as quadrilaterals, so four sides, or polygons, or multiple sides. So that would be all for making a concept learning effective. So our next slide is to applying constructivism and facilitating learning. So these are excellent strategies for creating a learning environment where students actively construct their own understanding. So first, aim to make learners understand a few key ideas in an in-depth manner rather than taking up so many topics superficially. So we have to focus on a smaller number of core concepts and explore them thoroughly. So this allows students to develop a deeper understanding and make meaningful connection. So for example, instead of covering every type of animal, we could focus on understanding the characteristics that define mammals, then explore different examples within the category. So for example, in our mammals, we have dogs, cats, whales, etc. So second is to provide opportunities for experimentation and for quality interaction. So we have to give students opportunities to experiment, explore, and discover through hands-on activities, projects, and investigation. And also, we could encourage collaboration and discussion among students wherein it allows them to share ideas, challenge each other's thinking, and learn from diverse perspectives. So, for example, instead of simply explaining the concept of gravity, have students conduct experiments to observe its effect, like dropping objects from different heights. Third, have a lots of hands-on activities. So, hands-on activities are essential for constructivist learning, wherein they engage students directly in learning process, which allows them to experience, explore, and make connections. So, for example, instead of reading about plant growth, have students plant seeds, observe their growth over time, and also record their observations because each students have different observations. Fourth is to relate our topic to real life situations and give varied examples. So we should connect the learning to real world context and experience to make it more meaningful and engaging for students. So we could use a wide range of examples to illustrate the concept from different angles and perspectives. So example, when teaching about fractions, we could use real life scenarios like sharing pizza or cutting a cake. So fifth is do not depend on the explanation method at all the time. So the teacher's role shifts from a traditional lecturer to a facilitator and guide. So we should encourage students to explore, experiment, and discover their own understanding rather than simply being told the information. So we teachers could use inquiry-based method to encourage students to ask questions, formulate hypotheses, and test their ideas. So, for example, instead of explaining the water cycles, pose question like where does the water go when it rains, and guide students to investigate and find answers. So that would be all for my report. Thank you for your time, and I hope you learned something.